In this video, I am literally going to show you how you never need to feel guilty about not working hard ever again. You outwork everyone by making things fun and easy. And how good does that sound as well? You can do the most essential tasks that you've deemed valuable and make them as effortless as you possibly can. This is what we're going to cover by dissecting the deep lessons from Effortless, the book by Greg McKeown. We're going to be covering 14 points, for example, how we can invert tasks to make them as easy as possible, to awaken to the possibility that we can make things a lot funner than they already are, and the importance of residual work instead of linear work. Let me contrast the story between Dave and Marcus. Dave, a middle-aged man, has just had a really stressful day at work. He's been ruminating on something that his boss has said, and he is now on his way home. He arrives, ignores every one of his family, and he quickly realizes his kids are very happy to see him and they want to play. As he starts playing with his kids, Dave gets more annoyed. His wife is getting more annoyed at him because of his lack of an entrance, and to get away from all of this, he wants to go on a run, but he can't find his running shoes, so in a burst of outrage, he has a go at everyone. Contrast this with Marcus. Now imagine, Marcus has just had a focused day at work. He's done a workout before he's returned home. He's had a hot shower to return him to stillness, and now he's come in, opened the door, kissed his lovely wife on the cheek, played with his kids for a little bit, and then had a very early night's sleep. Look, we've all been either Dave or Marcus at one point, and I think who we would all rather be. Marcus. So what we're going to be exploring in this video is how we can learn to turn our timers off. The effortless state is one in which you are physically rested, emotionally unburdened, and mentally energized. You are completely present, attentive, and focused on what's important in that moment. You are able to do what matters most with ease. Point number 1. Invert. What if this could be easy? Carl Jacobi, the 19th century German mathematician, would always tackle his problems from the point of inversion, and he said, one must invert. Always invert. And before I get into what that actually means, just have a little think about the language we use around work in our culture nowadays. We put blood, sweat and tears into something. We say hard work. We think that easy money is something that is illegal. We come home from work and we say, oh, I've had a hard day's work, rather than just a day's work. What if the biggest thing keeping us from doing what matters is the false assumption that it has to take tremendous effort? What if instead we considered the possibility that the reason something feels hard is that we haven't yet found the easier way to do it? Evolutionarily, we always seek the path of least resistance, so this chapter is imploring us to tap into our natural default of finding the path of least resistance. A funny piece of advice I got once was, if you have a task that needs doing, get a lazy person to do it and they'll always find the easiest way. But sometimes, because of the Puritan ideas we have in our mind, we feel guilty for not working tirelessly hard on something. For example, with this YouTube channel, right, I could put 3 hours deep work in every single day, but a few days ago I was like, no, I need to work like 12, 15 hour days on this YouTube channel, when really that's not the case. And when I do try too hard, I mess things up. I have to go back and I have to redo them. So the simple question we have to ask here when presented with a task is, what's the simplest way to achieve the desired result? Related to this is something I was reading last night from the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, where he said, the year I generated the most wealth for myself was actually the year I worked the least hard and cared the least about the future. I was mostly doing things for the sheer fun of it. I was basically telling people, I'm retired, I'm not working. Then I had the time for whatever was my highest value project in front of me. By doing things for their own sake, I did them at their best. If you can think about how hard it is to push a business uphill, particularly when you're just getting started, one answer is to say, why don't you just start a different business you can push downhill? Point 2, enjoy. What if this could be fun? The best example for making an essential task fun is Comic Relief. The big charity which every single year mixes comedy with donating money to charity makes the act of donating fun. So essentially what we're looking at here is pairing the most essential activities that you've deemed valuable with the most enjoyable. Because usually in our culture, again, we say work hard, play hard. But what if we said work easy, play easy? So the actionable step here is to literally just ask the question, what if this could be fun? Again, a lot of the times we get into the serious aspect of work, but doing it with a proverbial smile on our faces. And I've been trying to find ways in my mind to explain this point, but I think it is literally just finding enjoyment in the essential tasks you're doing and not feeling guilty about it. Number 3, release. The power of letting go. This chapter largely focuses on gratitude, and he says, when you focus on what you lack, you lose what you have. When you focus on what you have, you get what you lack. Being unhappy is incredibly inefficient, and sometimes we can propel this unhappiness through holding on to a grudge. And in the same way as if you was a CEO and you hired an employee, we hire a grudge to do a particular job. So you have to ask yourself, What have I hired this grudge to do? And sometimes the grudge might be holding on to the need to actually inflict hurt on someone. But when we relinquish that power to hurt someone, it's not the culprit who's freed, we're the people who are freed. And also, something that can really trip us up is complaining. Now, a little thing that you can add in here is every time you complain about something, immediately focus on something that you're grateful for. This is something I've started using since this book to some success over the last 2 weeks, because I found myself complaining a lot. But in the same way as neuroscientifically, whenever you perform an undesired habit that you want to quit, doing a good habit straight away will allow you to break that bad habit. Focusing on something you're grateful for after you complain immediately shifts the negative to the positive. Number 4, rest. The art of doing nothing. Do not do more today than you can completely recover from today. Do not do more this week than you can completely recover from this week. This is something I've been thinking a lot about recently, especially with the work that I'm doing. So when I'm editing a video, it could take me a long time because I'm not outsourcing my editing at the moment. So I could spend like a 10-12 hour day just editing, and then I'm knackered for the next 4 days, and it's not productive. It's the same argument with working out. Let's say you don't know how to do a pull-up. You can try and do 20 pull-ups today and then not be able to work out for the rest of the week, or you can do 5 pull-ups today, 5 pull-ups tomorrow, 5 times 7, 35 pull-ups instead of 20. 15 more. So you can embrace the Hemingway principle here, where Hemingway said, I think, when your writing is going good, that's when you should stop and save yourself for tomorrow. Thinking about the psychic energy you have throughout the day, if you're doing deep work, you don't want to do more than 3 bouts of deep work for 90 minutes each. You don't want to do more than that, otherwise you're not going to be able to work the next day. And if you're after sustainable productivity, then it would pay dividends to pay attention to this. Think about athletes as well. They train, they recover, they eat well, they sleep, and they develop a good mindset. Cultivate the same in your effortless pursuits. Part 2, effortless action. How can we make the essential work easier to do? Accomplishing more by trying less. Point 1, define what done looks like. A simple idea, but it's clear. If you're about to do something, if you don't know what done looks like, then you're never going to know when to stop. So for example, you might say, this week I want to upload my first YouTube video. That's a little bit vague. Defining it in the way that we know what done looks like would be, this week I want to record a 5-minute video about how stoicism has impacted my life, save the file, upload it to YouTube, and click publish by Tuesday. Instead of saying, I want to read more, you could say, in 1 week, the Brothers Karamazov will be ticked as done on my Kindle. I think a lot about the actual process of thought here, and how just taking 2 minutes to think about something before you actually start doing it can save you so much time. I think it was Einstein who said if he only had an hour to solve a problem, he would spend 90% of the time thinking about the problem and then 10% acting on the issue. And also, defining what done looks like allows you to not pass the point which you've set for yourself. Again, being sustainably productive. If you want to walk more, change that to, I will reach 10,000 steps on my Fitbit every day for the next 2 weeks. In Swedish culture, they actually call it Swedish death cleaning, doing the tasks that you need to do before you die so you don't leave anything undone. Number 2, start. The first obvious action. All you want to do here is simply find the first obvious action for you to act upon. So you've got the essential project, you've got the first obvious action, and then that gives you a microburst of energy and a flywheel of momentum to then go into the next thing to then get it all done. So for example, I'm sitting in the garage now. Let's say it was a little bit untidy. I could be like, oh, that's an overwhelming task. There's stuff everywhere. Okay, let me pick up my bike, put it outside and clear the space. I want to record a YouTube video. Okay, that's a little bit vague. The first obvious action is to get up the notes on my laptop, go through the ideas that I have and pick one that I can record. Number 3, simplify. Start with 0. The simplest steps are the ones that you don't take. That's a big B. The point here is to start from absolute 0 on a task, think about what done looks like, and then think about the minimum necessary steps you need to take in order to get the task done. So the process I follow in order to create a video is a 7-step process. I think about the idea, I research, I create the video, I edit it, I upload it, I celebrate, and then I repeat. Most geniuses prosper not by deconstructing intricate complexities, but by exploiting unrecognized simplicities. Number 4, progress. The courage to be rubbish. I've told this story before on this channel, but when I was in university, the best piece of advice I got for writing essays was to write a crappy first draft. Having that word crappy in there just alleviated the perfectionistic tendencies I would have to then actually just be like, if I'm going to aim for a crappy one, I can do a crappy one, and then I would get it done. And then I would edit it, and then submit it. Language learning is the perfect example here for why people don't do it, and therefore it exemplifies why they don't really have the courage to be rubbish. People don't want to make mistakes and sound like a child when they're speaking a language for the first time, because that's what you have to do when you're learning in like the first 6 months. In the book, he gives an example from one of his friends who actually is a Spanish teacher. What he suggests for his students is they imagine that they have a bag full of 1,000 pebbles, and every time they make a mistake while speaking to a native person in their target language, they take out one pebble, and then when the bag is empty, they've reached level 1 mastery. That's a really good way to think about it, because every time I'm learning a language, every time I'm doing something that involves a lot of failure, whenever I've set my intention to fail, it's made it so much easier, and I've made so much more progress as well, because then, you know, there's a narcissistic element of anxiety, to be honest, where you think everyone is listening to you and everyone cares about you, but it's not the case. Sticking with the example of language learning here, but this applies to anything. You're doing jiu-jitsu, language learning, you're learning a new skill, musical instrument. When you set your intention to fail, neuroscientifically, I think they found that you want to separate it between 85% success and then 15% failure, so you don't overwhelm yourself too much. But the more you can lean into the courage to be rubbish and not be absolutely brilliant at everything you're doing at the first try, you're going to make so much more progress, and it will be a lot more enjoyable as well. You also want to make failure as cheap as you possibly can. For example, if you've got a kid and you want to teach them some financial lessons, don't give them 100 grand to then go and experiment with. You want to give them like a quid so they can learn the costs of losing £1 rather than spunking all of your money away. As Dostoevsky said, it is better to go wrong in your own way than to go right in someone else's. Number 5, pace. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. When you go slow, things are smoother. When things are smoother, you go faster. When you think about elite infantry in the military, on a mission they move anywhere between a walk and a run, so they can monitor their direction and their environment as they're progressing through the battlefield. Less experienced infantry will sprint through the battlefield to give the impression of momentum, and then they'll find themselves quickly in a new environment that they haven't assessed or scoped out the dangers of. So to apply that back to our lives, the quicker you go, the more you can get yourself into unproductive positions where you've burnt yourself out too quickly and you haven't digested and assessed as you go along. Let's say you want to read 20 non-fiction books over the next 2 weeks. Stupid idea, because how much of that are you actually going to digest and absorb? Let's say I give you the task to read 1 book a month for the next year, and you finish a book within a week, and then for the next 2 to 3 weeks of that month you spend thinking about what you've actually learned and returning to the lessons. You'll learn so much more through going slower. Practical tip you can learn here is to set upper and lower bounds of activity, so you avoid being lazy, but you also avoid potentially burning yourself out. So for example, let's say I want to call my family every single week for the next month. In each call, I'll never call them less than 5 minutes, but I'll never speak longer than an hour. If I want to learn Spanish every day for the next 6 months, I'll never learn less than 2 minutes, but I'll never learn more than 30 minutes. The lower bound staves off demotivation, but the upper bound staves off burnout. Part 3, last point. Effortless results. How can we get the highest return on the least effort? Here, I want to go through the biggest insight I got from the book, where he differentiated between linear and residual results. Linear is something that you do once and that you get paid for the duration of time that you put into it. So for example, a linear employee who works for an hour gets paid for 1 hour. A student who learns in a linear way will cram everything before the test just to regurgitate it, and then he'll forget it all the next day. Someone who exercises today but then has to make the decision again tomorrow and the day after whether they're going to exercise has made a linear decision. And a parent who has to remind their kids every single day to do the chores is a linear parent. Residual, on the other hand, is something that we do once and that we can reap the benefits of after we've done the task. So for example, an author writes a book once but gets paid for it for the rest of their lives. A YouTuber uploads a video once but can get views from it years and years to come. A residual student will learn the first principles, master the fundamentals, so that they can then apply those principles in multiple different contexts. A dad who dedicates one whole chore to a child and helps them make the process fun is a residual parent. This can also work negatively residually, because of course if you're engaging in a bad behavior, not working out today, okay, it's a bad residual decision for years to come, because it might not affect you right now, but 5 years of inactivity, you're going to be a fat lump. Point number 1 here, learn. Leverage the best of what others know. Principles are better to learn than methods, because akin to the same differentiation between linear and residual results, methods help you learn how to do something once and then never again. A principle is something that you can apply in many different situations, because first principles are like the building blocks of knowledge that we stand on and then we can add to. For example, understanding Understanding why or how something happens can give you residual results. Understanding what my audience wants allows me to make residual videos because I can do it in many different contexts. If you learn how to unify a team once, you can learn how to unify many teams for years to come. If you understand how to make a decision once, then you can understand how to make many decisions. If you know that your wife really likes pizza and you buy her a pizza every single night, the first week, oh my god, she's in ecstasy, but then the novelty will quickly wear off. But if you understood what she really valued and what she really liked, then you can get her multiple gifts and give her multiple experiences which tap into this in many different angles. Pizza, one night. Movies, the next night. 1 hour of undivided present attention the other night. Mate, she'll love it. There's an old parable about... There's an old parable about a fox and a hedgehog, and the parable goes that the hedgehog knows one big thing and the fox knows many small little things. And people argue that the hedgehog is better off for knowing one big thing. However, people don't realise that if the fox knew how to combine the many little things that it knows, it would be better off. So the way that you can learn through first principles is 1. Read books that have stood the test of time. If a book has been around, like Marcus Aurelius' Meditations has been around for a really long time because it's been applicable in so many circumstances and so many epochs of, pardon me, it's been applicable in so many epochs of life. Number 2, read to absorb, not to just tick something off your reading list. And then number 3, summarize what you've learned so you can really distill the knowledge. Being good at what nobody is doing is better than being great at what everyone is doing, but being an expert in something nobody is doing is exponentially more valuable. Stand on the shoulders of giants and leverage the best of what they know. Number 3, automate. Do it once and never again. Essentially, if you can make a process automatic, do it, because then you're going to delegate a lot of energy which you can focus then on the essential tasks. And also remove as much necessity as possible to make decisions. So for example, I wear black t-shirts a lot because simple decision in the morning. Number 4, trust. The engine of high leverage teams. In 2003, Warren Buffett wanted to buy McLean Distribution, which was valued at about $23 billion. They were a provider of supply chain solutions to Walmart, whatever that means. And how complex must that have been? He wanted to buy a company for $23 billion. Oh my god, the negotiations. No, it took 2 hours and a handshake for him to close the deal. So the leverage that trust can give us, whether you're hiring someone, whether you've got a group of friends, the ability to put your trust in people and to know that they are consistent and reliable is a residual decision. And you cannot have a high performing team without trust. I've been in many teams before. Whenever there's internal politics, when the manager wants to continuously monitor what you're doing, it never makes anyone feel good because their autonomy is neglected. And also the manager who does that, who is constantly checking what his employees are doing, is always on edge around them because he's paranoid and suspecting that they're not trustworthy. And that begins with the hiring process for sure. In a high trust environment, the goals are clear, the standards are articulated, everyone knows what their job is, and the right result is prioritized. This was a brilliant point. He says if you're working within a team, if you tie an individual's contribution to the bigger project at hand rather than to their individual contribution, then that will garner more trust within the team, where they'll all adopt a CEO mindset where the project becomes just as important to them rather than their linear work of I put 1 hour in, I get 1 hour payback. Maintaining a high performing team comes down to results, roles, rules, resources and rewards. What results do we want? Who is doing what? What minimum viable standards must be kept? What resources, people, money, tools are available and needed? How will progress be evaluated and rewarded? Number 5, last point. We are close. Prevent. Solve the problem before it happens. The saying never make the same mistake twice is a little bit of a tricky one. I kind of prefer the Japanese saying where they say fall down 7 times, get up on the 8th, because there are some things that we do and then we can make the effort to not repeat it again. For example, you only have to ask a stupid question once, but there are times when you might need to do something again and again and again, and then on the 10th time you stop. This point is all about maybe reducing the amount of times we fail on something in order to fail, glean the lesson, absorb it and move on, and then fail in the next thing. So I've got 3 questions for you. Number 1, ask yourself, what is a problem that irritates me repeatedly? And then number 2, think about what is the cost of this problem continuing over the next several years. And then number 3, this will cut to the core, what is the next step I can immediately take to solve this problem. Because if you're not striking at the root of a problem, it's like you're trying to chop a tree down from the branches rather than just hacking at the root. To go back to parenting, sorry parents, but let's say a parent complains every day at 5 o'clock after the kids have been playing that it's untidy all of the time. Rather than sitting the kids down and again dedicating one chore to the child to clear up after they've been playing, instead of a doctor sitting his patient down and giving him continuous surgery and medicine, he sits him down and proposes that he changes his lifestyle. Measure twice, cut once. Thank you for your time, thank you for your attention. Hopefully this will enable you to return to the essential tasks to get them done more effortlessly. This has really been a standout book for me, and if there's one thing I want you to take away from this, it is that you don't need to feel guilty about not working hard all of the time. You will outwork so many people if you can make your work fun and enjoyable, and if you look at it over a really long period of time and don't rush it. Cannot drill this through your head enough. It is okay for your work to be really fun and really enjoyable, because I feel it sometimes. The best videos I've done on YouTube, the highest performing ones, were criminally fun for me to do. And again, I feel that desire to use the word criminal, because I should be like, oh my god, I should have worked so much harder for it. But now I'm actually starting to realise, no, I shouldn't. It's absolutely fine for something to be fun and effortless. That is the way it should be. Because again, the backwards law, the more you care about something, the less you actually do well at it. The less you care about something, sometimes the better you do at it. So the more you hang back a little bit and you're like, I don't care about working myself into the ground for this, the better you'll probably do at it. Cheers, boys and girls. See you in the next one. The saying never make the same mistake twice is a little bit of a tricky one.